Welcome to the PIO podcast, a place for everything public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local governments.
It was a good learning experience for a lot of us that social media is not real life.
But we have to remember the media are very rarely a target audience. They're simply that conduit.
Our words have impacts on individuals, and it may not be positive. So just being thoughtful and mindful of the words that we speak.
I think what's so interesting about this position too, and this job and this profession, is that every one of us is looking for purpose, and when we find it here, that's it.
To know is that a crisis for one is not necessarily a crisis for another.
Hello everyone, hope you're enjoying our content. If you would be so kind and click the link at the bottom of today's episode notes, your support in any amount will keep the podcast going. Whatever you can provide will keep the lights on and the podcast growing. So sit back and enjoy today's episode.
Today on the PIO podcast, we want to welcome Sarah Lux. She's a public information officer for Lake County, Florida, Board of Commissioners, and the owner of Lux Communication Strategies. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So before we get too far, let's talk about your background and how you became a public information officer.
Yeah, so, it's so funny because I majored my bachelor's degree in anthropology. It was not in public relations. It was not in communications. My whole thing was I wanted to talk to people. That was it, right? I just wanted to kind of interact with different cultures and different people. And so that's what I wanted to do. And then through college, kind of figured out, I don't want to do like the digging up bone stuff. That's gross. Very cool, but very gross. Not for me. And so instead, what I want to do is just talk to people. And, I got into marketing because that kind of made sense. And then I figured out what a PIO was. And I said, that's what I want to do. Went and got my master's degree. And from that, just kind of kept moving. I thought that I wanted to be a government PIO because I was like, well, I'll do something that's very boring PIO work, right? And then that way I'll cut my teeth and it'll be easy and boring. And then I can go and be a PIO for like something much more crazy and wild. Not realizing that government is the craziest, wildest place that you can be in as a PIO.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Yeah. There's not a dull moment in this field whatsoever. So, Sarah, I'm catching an accent here. Where are you originally from?
So it's a funny story. I'm from the Appalachian Mountains in South Carolina. So when I came down to Florida, I had a very thick Southern accent, like a very, very thick Appalachian accent. And my parents decided we don't want that. We're going to put her in speech class. And my speech teacher was British.
Okay, that's what I thought you were from. Were you from Britain? Because I'm hearing this tone of British in you.
Yeah, so sometimes you'll get really Southern, and sometimes you'll get a little British, and sometimes it's a mix of both. People, when they guess, tend to guess, well, it's like British but wrong. So is it Australian or South African? So what's British but different, right? And so I get that a lot.
I didn't want to be specific. I wanted to ask because I'm always wrong when I hear it, but I hear the tone, so I'm like, it's interesting. So cool, very cool. All right, so we already kind of talked about it. Why you're a people person. Basically, that's what you are. You wanted to interact with people and not bones and stuff like that. But your master's degree, was it in communications or was it in something separate?
Yeah, so it was in public relations. And you're right. I'm just I call myself a painful extrovert. So I desperately want to talk to people.
So you're one of those people that are going to a crowd and you will literally talk to everybody in that crowd by the time you're done.
It's my goal to be best friends with everybody there. Yeah.
Very cool. That's okay. That's awesome. All right. So you handle the entire communications. You handle all communications for the entire county, the Board of Commissioners, and fire, rescue, and emergency management, correct?
Yeah, over 20 departments total. So I'm the lead public information officer. I do have a director of communications who handles kind of the strategy, the long-term strategy. And then I'm representing the 20 plus departments we have, which include all of public safety. So you got animal services, emergency management, fire, and EMS. It's a good time. It's wild.
So yeah, when do you sleep? Because if you're handling all those agencies and during a hurricane, and this is hurricane season, I'm sure that's going to impact you guys. And you're handling all of those, which is nice because it's a single voice. which is advantageous, but also incredibly stressful, right?
Yeah, some weeks you sleep better than others. In the past 2 weeks, and I don't think I'm saying anything that people don't know, but we had a substation fire. 10,000 homes lost power immediately. A couple days later, we had, unfortunately, a tragic officer-involved death. And then directly after that, we had Hurricane Debbie. And so it was about 2 weeks of very little sleep. When I'm in the EOC, I typically work 22-hour shifts. So
oh my goodness.
It's quite a lot.
I'm sure. You know what? I didn't ask this question. Where is Lake County located in Florida? Because I don't know if everybody knows where it's at.
Very few people do. And it's great. So we call ourselves Real Florida, Real Close, because we're right above Orlando.
Okay.
So you can go to Orlando, you can go to Disney, the theme parks, downtown Orlando, but then you can come just slightly north and get to, trees and rivers and lakes and things like that. So we have over 1,200 lakes in Lake County, which is why it has the name that it does. So you can go and do all the theme parks, fun, tourism stuff, and then you can go slightly north and get the nature side of it.
And is it all landlocked? I mean, there's no ocean on either side? Okay.
No ocean on any side? Nope.
And what's the population of the county?
We have over 400,000 residents. It used to be over 410,000, but I think we've grown a little bit since I got that number. So right over 400,000.
Okay. And then what's the number of employees countywide? Do you have an idea? A guesstimate?
Yeah, we're right over 900. I want to say we might have broken 1,000, but we're over 900 for sure.
Okay, so decent-sized county population, decent-sized county staffing, but it's still a lot of responsibilities, and you're handling 20. I mean, that's a lot of agencies. So how are you managing all those social media platforms? Because you're not just utilizing one platform for all those agencies. You've got to split it up.
Oh, yeah, we've got a ton of platforms, a ton of different pages. We actually just started a fire page. I'm very lucky in that I may be the only, head PIO, the only spokesperson, but I do have 2 content coordinators underneath me who are excellent. They're on the younger side. They're both, fresh faces, and they do social media like it is going out of style. I bring them kind of like I saw this on TikTok, we should do it thing. And then they're over here like, okay, mom, go away. They do all the really creative stuff, and they're amazing. They both are.
All right. So what platforms are you running currently? Like, you don't have to name the different agencies, but what are the main platforms you're utilizing?
Yeah, so we have Facebook for for a bunch of them. So we have Facebook for public safety, for animal services, for the main page, a couple of other Facebook pages. We also have a couple Instagram pages, and then we also have LinkedIn. We used to be on Twitter. Twitter got a little weird for a while, so we've stopped engaging with Twitter a little bit, but I do expect at some point we'll go back to X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We'll go back to X in the future when things get a little bit calmer. But right now we're really focusing on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Okay. And are you running a YouTube channel or anything like that?
We do have a YouTube channel. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, we do. We have actually 2. We have one for tourism, and we have one for the regular county. So regular county is obviously more board meetings and, much more public information videos. But then on the tourism side, you have more fun, engaging, come to Lake County kind of information.
Okay. So you have a YouTube channel. Does that mean you've incorporated video into your social media postings?
Oh, absolutely. Most of what we do nowadays is video or photo focused. It's all visual because that's what people want to see. When you're scrolling and you see stuff all day long every day, the videos and photos are what's going to catch you.
How are you getting the video?
Oh, so we have, and I brag on him all the time, we have a photographer and a videographer in-house. I'm very lucky, again, for that. So photographer, videographer in-house. Our videographer has won 3 Emmys now. And so everybody who asks, I tell them because I'm desperate for him not to leave me because he's amazing. So I brag on him all the time. And he does amazing work. Our photographer is also amazing. We have some graphic artists in-house. We have some web developers in-house. So I'm very lucky that I may be the PIO, but really I've got a ton of support, and a lot of PIOs don't have that.
No, a lot of them are doing all those things, and you have the main role, and then you have the content creators behind you, and a videographer and a photographer. That's awesome. Yeah. So that you could truly just hone the craft of being a PIO, and they can handle the day-to-day operations of those platforms. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank God. In my previous positions, it was literally just me, right? And so I would go out and do photo, video, all of it. And, it's great to learn those things. But as you get a little bit further and you get a little bit more, in deep in the process and the policies and talking to leadership, you really just don't have time to do all of that. So I'm very, very lucky. I'm very blessed.
That's awesome. Do you utilize any specialized software such as Hootsuite or Sprout Social to help you guys manage your content platforms?
Yeah, we actually just switched over to Hootsuite maybe 6 months ago, and it's been great. So before that, we had a different platform that just couldn't handle the number of pages that we had, basically. And so we did a lot of research. We switched over to Hootsuite, which has been great, not only for getting things scheduled, but also just for tracking and approval processes and the whole nine yards.
That's good. Awesome. And it's tough when you have as many pages as you probably are running. If you didn't have that, I mean, literally jumping from one platform to another to try and post something, that could be exhausting.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine? There was a couple weeks in between us getting Hootsuite and leaving the other platform that we had to be on Facebook native to post things. And I thought both my content coordinators were going to start a swear jar. They were so mad about it. So thank God we're back to a regular platform. But I couldn't imagine. I think we have upwards of 12 or 15 pages, and I just can't imagine.
Oh yeah, I can't. Yeah, that would be just absolutely brutal. So when you first came to Lake County, what surprised you about the position?
Oh man, so before Lake County, I was with Orange County, which is where Orlando is. And Orange County has a very deep PIO network. And so when I came over to Lake County, there was a worry in me that, there was going to have to be a lot of building because they wouldn't have had that deep PIO support that Orange County's had that's built those processes and those procedures and those expectations over time, right? Since I've been here, I've been really surprised at how amenable and adaptable everybody is. So I came in and just started laying down policy, and I got so much support. It's been really cool. If I say I want to start doing monthly communicative meetings with PIOs in the area, okay, go do that, right? So I think the biggest surprise to me wasn't that there weren't policies in place. It was that I had so much free will to put the policies in place I wanted to be there. That's simply not the case in a lot of counties. The other thing that surprised me is that, unlike counties that have a lot of bigger municipalities, we have 14, but a lot of them are on the smaller side. And so some of them have PIOs, some of them don't have PIOs. And there really wasn't a way for communicators to network before I got here. They didn't meet, they didn't talk, they didn't go get coffee. And so one of the first things that I implemented was, no, we're going to meet every month. We're all going to know each other's names, know each other's faces. So if something, God forbid, something happens, you can call me. You know me. We have a relationship, right? So that was really surprising to me and something that we changed. And again, huge support. They come every month. They're happy to be there. It's great.
That's awesome. And anytime you can create that network of resources, just bouncing something off of somebody's head, say, I've never encountered this before. Hey, what do you think about this? And just to have that person to talk to is a great thing. And then best practices and all the other fun stuff that comes out of it, or new ideas. Yeah, that's great.
We do it all the time. It's awesome. At the meeting, we always have a topic. So we've had roundtables on, do we turn off social media comments, yes or no? Because some municipalities have, some municipalities haven't. Some people have strong feelings, some people don't, right? I'm a strong feeling person about pretty much everything. So I have strong feelings about that. Just this last one, we had a discussion on AI and making sure that the prompts you're putting in or the questions you're asking or what you're using it for is best practices. So
we're going to talk about AI in a little bit. All right. So what did you find most challenging when you first got there?
Lake County is very big. By land mass, it's one of the biggest in Florida, right? It's a very big county and it's very diverse. So in Orange County, where, it's a little bit more uniform in terms of political beliefs and not necessarily income, but just what people are interested in kind of as a whole. Lake County has all kinds of different people. And so really communicating to the whole community is a little bit more difficult here. It's conservative in some areas, not conservative in other areas. It has elderly pockets, but very young pockets. One of the things I like to remind people of is Lake County has a huge Hindi population. And nobody, really talks about that. But how are we communicating to the Hindi population, right? How are we doing that? So one of the biggest challenges I've found being here, and I don't think people realize it, is just the diversity. When I say Lake County, a lot of the times people be like, oh, Lake County, it's all basically the same uniform. Everybody looks the same. Everybody talks the same. They're just rural farmers. No, there's so much out here, and it's been a challenge, but it's been fun getting to reach those different pockets. But it has been challenging to make messaging for everybody on that broad of a scale, right?
Excellent. What advice would you have for someone who wanted to be a public information officer?
I need you to ask questions. A lot of organizations are hiring PIOs with the term PIO, and I'm never a gatekeeper. I don't think anybody should be gatekeeped out of a profession or a title or anything, but I do think that PIO brings with it a certain set of challenges and expectations. And if you don't have that, just ask a question, right? Find somebody you can ask and talk to about it. I find a lot of PIOs tell me that they learned, trial by combat. And it's like, well, who did you bring in the ring with you? Or did you face the ring by yourself with a stick? Because there's other PIOs who would come in and gladly teach you so many things for free that I think that they don't think about doing. So I would say ask questions. It's a funny story, but I'll tell you a story that I used to teach English in Thailand. And this was before I was a PIO. This was in my past life, right? And I had a kid who cried for 3 straight days. Just cried from beginning of class to end of class, 3 straight days. And I couldn't figure out why I was crying. And I did everything to figure it out to make this kid stop. And finally, I looked at my co-teacher, who was Thai, and I asked, why is he crying? And they said, oh, he just keeps yelling, you're too tall, because I'm 5'10". And I sat down and he immediately stopped crying. And I think about that all the time. Like, I should have asked that question 3 days beforehand. Right? And I just didn't. I just didn't think about it.
Wow, that's crazy. That's funny. Yeah. That's a great story.
I think so.
All right, so Sarah, working in a community where you say you have an extremely diverse population in a lot of different ways, that can be challenging in connecting through messaging. So how do you communicate empathy when you need to a community that's so diverse?
Empathy is really tough. And it's funny because it's becoming a topic, but I think it needs to be discussed more. Empathy it should be simple because you shouldn't have to think about it, right? Empathy should be the most human element of you, that when you have to talk to your neighbor, what are you going to say, right? And I think sometimes we look to structure empathy in a scientific method and we completely miss the point. And so what I've found is, if I'm going to go speak to a Hindi community or a Spanish community, and I say, man, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Can we talk about it? What do you need? Let me see if I can get you some help, right? They respond to it. If I go to, we have an area called Astor that's not big on the government. They're not huge government fans, right? And if I go up there and I'm with a faith-based leader, because I know that's how they connect with people, and I'm with a faith-based leader and I say, man, what do you need? How can I help? What can I do for you, right? They connect with that because it's all about that human interaction. When we try to formulate empathy into like a statement piece, I think it gets lost that we're trying to do something that should be basic inside of you.
And it's genuine. Right? I think that's important. What I could hear the way it's so genuine. You're asking that question from a heartfelt person that wants to know the answer of what I can do to help.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time, what we're actually asking is, will you trust me to help you? Right? I'm asking for your trust that I'm going to take what you say and go and do something about it. Or you're going to trust me that I actually care about you, right? And so if you're trying to ask for trust with like a pre-made messaging statement to everybody, it's not going to work.
Nope.
It's just not going to.
Nope.
So.
Excellent. All right. So toxicity in public communications is a challenge. In this current political climate we have with an election year, the impact on communicators both professionally and personally can be huge. We saw an attack on one of the PIOs recently through Senate hearings. How can a PIO successfully navigate that toxicity?
Yeah, toxicity is something I've been talking about in PIO circles for a long time, because what PIO is ego driven, right? I want to show up, I want to look good, I want to speak well, I want to do my job, and I want to get out because I'm representing important people. It's so ego forward, right? Even if you're faking it. And I think a lot of the time that bogs down the industry, where people get in that mode and don't know how to get out. And so I've had really interesting conversations with people where, I teach from a place of, I failed doing this. Don't do this next time, right? I failed, learn from me. And I've had PIOs come up and say, never say that again. Never tell people you failed. They'll never respect you. And I was just like, man, no, I'm going to tell you I failed every day. I fail at something every day, whether that's I didn't turn on my blink or whatever.
Everybody fails, right? Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And if we lived in a world where all the PIOs were perfect, we would have none of the issues that are going on in the world as it is right now.
Yeah, PIOs would be saving the world left and right?
Yep.
It's not a thing. And so it's so funny, because I've had all of these conversations where, I know PIOs personally who watch press conferences excited to find what they did wrong in them. Now, me and my director watch press conferences, but we watch press conferences to see, like, oh, what could we do? Like, oh, we're going to implement that. The city of Baltimore's mayor, his press conference, mind-blowing, right? But I personally know PIOs who watch press conferences to dog on that PIO in that moment.
No, I always look to find, hey, they really did a nice job on that. I took a piece away from that and learned another lesson. That's the way I always look at it. Now, if it's a reporter, it's a different story. I always look for the mistakes the reporters make. I don't know why, I just do.
I do that too. I do that too a little bit. Yeah, it's so funny, because what I'm looking for is like, oh, they use the word fluid. And I've used the word fluid 1,000 times. This is a fluid situation. And that reporter dogged on them for the word fluid. Maybe I shouldn't use the word fluid next time, right? But man, I know it. And I know PIOs who they want to be better than other PIOs, because to them, that's them doing their job.
Right.
And, I think the only way to normalize that not happening is to call it out and say, hey, are you trying to help or are you trying to hurt? I think you should figure that out before you keep talking, right? But B, I think that empathy that we talk about in classes over and over and over and over and over again has to be applied to your peers too, and not just to the people you're communicating to about the crisis. You have to give people grace, and you have to give people empathy, because it's okay if they made a mistake. It's not the end of the world. Right?
Absolutely. And that's so true. The grace thing, I think, is important. I think that you need to give other people grace when they make a mistake, and or even if it's not a mistake, but hey, here's a way you could have maybe done this differently. I'm not hitting you for what you said. I'm just trying to give you a better version of what you said.
Right. Let me help you in the future. Let me help future you. Right.
Right.
I'll be honest with you. So the other day when we were for Hurricane Debbie, we were dealing with some post-hurricane situations, and I had to communicate something that I felt very uncomfortable communicating because it was outside of my jurisdiction.
Okay.
But I was the PIO there. I was the one who could make the decision, and I froze. I could not pull the trigger on immediately getting that out. And I'm somebody who I'm in the Master PIO cohort. I go to the classes, I train, I host classes, right? And I had the messaging in front of me. I wrote it, and I looked at it, and I went, this isn't for me. I'm not supposed to say this, and I froze. Now, maybe it was only for 3 or 4 minutes, right? But it was still a delay in that communication where I said, oh my God, am I supposed to be doing this? I don't know. And I called a PIO friend of mine, and I said, what do I do? What do I do? And they said, send it. And I said, okay. And I sent it. Right? But it was terrifying.
Yeah.
That's a terrifying situation. But look, if I can teach classes and be in the Master PIO cohort and blah, 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 right? And have letters after my name or whatever, and I can still call and go, oh my God, what do I do? You can too. It's okay.
Exactly.
Everybody can do that.
Nobody has all the answers. I've been in law enforcement for almost 30 years. I've been a PIO for 17 of those 30 years. I'm still learning. And I teach a course for PIOs through TEACS, and I'm still learning that. Every time I teach a course, somebody tells me something, I'm gaining something. I hope they're gaining stuff that we give them.
That's right. That's right. I hope so. I really do. You know, everybody says, I have people who take my classes multiple times, and they always say I learned something different. But you keep learning. Like, I don't think they realize the instructors keep learning too, right?
Absolutely.
It's like somebody will say something, and I'm like, holy cow. I had no idea. Like, wow.
I got to write a note. I always carry a notebook. So when I'm teaching, I always have a notebook so I can write something down if I need to. Because, I always take something away from everything that I teach.
Yeah, you have to. It's so funny because, deploying and going to all these different counties with vastly different challenges and vastly different levels of destruction teaches you so much. And it almost gets to the point where I would love for PIOs to just do one deployment. Just one, right? It doesn't have to be the death and full destruction one. Go on a deployment that is a little bit less traumatic, right? But just go, because you learn so much. And one of the things I learned is that there is crying in an EOC. Again, that goes back to the toxicity, right? There is crying in EOCs, trust me, right? There is a level of, I'm out of words. I don't have words left in my brain. I'm out, right? Attacked. I've had Parks and Rec guys sitting behind me whispering words into my ear because I'm just staring at a paper, and they're like, you could say this. And I'm like, great, thank you. If you deploy, you go through those really hard situations and you learn a little bit more every time.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to switch gears here. I want to talk about the use of artificial intelligence, specifically in communication. So what are your thoughts on its use?
I think it's a really great tool. A lot of people will say, communications jobs are going to go away. And I completely disagree, because AI does a terrible job being human. It just does. It can't speak with empathy. It can't talk like a human does. It's not there. And I don't think it ever will be, honestly. No. But I think it's a really cool tool, especially for PIOs who are by themselves or don't have a ton of support, to be able to get a foundation for some of the more routine things. And then be able to edit up from that foundation. That's huge. Right? And then the other applications in terms of what we can put on our website and things of that nature, it's really cool too.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's advantages to it. I think that you have to set limits so you don't make mistakes and solely rely on the AI to create your content. But I like the way you said it. It gives you a base and then you build from that. I think that's very important. Do you use it?
I do. Yeah, every day.
Excellent.
Every day I do.
So what challenges do you see facing communications professionals in the public sector in the next 3 to 5 years?
In terms of AI especially, I can see overuse. So there's a couple different challenges that I'm really focused on trying to tamp down on, and all of them are technology-based. AI, I think you're going to have an over-reliance. I actually force my content coordinators to handwrite everything. And it's not because I think they're bad writers or they need practice or whatever. It's because as they shift into PIOs, when they get enough experience, they are going to have to know how to write from scratch. And it can be a skill that you lose. Yes. Right? It's like speaking a language. You're going to lose it if you don't practice it. And so I think you're going to have an over-reliance on AI that I think is a little bit scary. It's not that I think AI is a bad thing. I just want to make sure people are flexing their skills and not dampening their skills, right?
Right.
And again, editing up. Don't just post what AI writes because it's going to be bad. Don't do that. Just edit up. Right? The second one that I think is a really big deal, and it's actually what I'm writing my thesis paper on, is social media can't be the only tool you use to communicate.
Yes.
You have got to have multiple tools to communicate.
Yes.
I'm amazed every day at the number of PIOs I talk to. I'm like, great, what are your platforms? Like, what are you doing? Social media.
Yeah.
And give me something else, man. And especially if we're talking crisis communication, social media cannot be the only thing you're using.
No, I mean,
you've got to have a way.
You've got to be able to, you got to write things. I'm a big believer of pushing people from social to your agency website. That means you have to have quality content there, and then it's got to be updated regularly, which means somebody's got to do it. And a lot of times that's going to be your PIO.
That's right. Or let's say, you have social media going, but you have a huge Spanish speaking population. Are you translating that to Spanish?
Right.
Are you translating it to Hindi? Oh, so you're just missing a huge part of your population. You can't do that, right? I was actually, so I submitted my MPIO paper today, which was very scary. And if they're listening, it was terrifying. But when I was reading through my paper over and over again, the statistic that called out to me was that in my survey that I did for my paper, over 85% of PIOs said that they had a specific strategy for social media built into their plans. But only 66% of Hispanic population, people who responded, said they use social media at all. And only 67% of the Asian population said that they used social media at all. So you're talking about you have a specific strategy for communicating to people that you're missing 30% of your people for. Right. Right. And I think that's crazy. And so, you know, in the same survey, I was asking people what else they use. Only 4.8% of people had a plan to engage their faith-based leaders.
Oh, wow.
Right? Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Only, I think it was 16% had plans to use flyers if people couldn't see their social media.
Well, what do you do when the power goes out? Right?
What do you do when the power goes out?
What do you do when the towers come down and there's no cell towers and there's no connectivity? So you're going to have to do something. Flyers, street, the outdoor signs, all that stuff, you know. Might have to go to chalkboards.
You might have to. We were stapling things to trees in Fort Myers Beach. You know, like, you do what you got to do. And it's scary to me how over-reliant sometimes we get on the easier tools. Because social media is easy.
All right.
Right?
It's
You
very
get on
easy.
there, you can say something quick. It's very easy. It's very low effort. And not that, you know, your content's low effort, but it's easy to engage with.
Right. Exactly.
And so you got to think of other things. I'm begging you to. You got to.
Sarah, is there a question I should have asked? And if so, how would you have answered it?
You know, I think I would have loved to talk a little bit more about the younger generation, because that's what I'm really focused on. You know, we have a lot of experience between the two of us. The PIOs that I talk to regularly have a lot of experience. But what does that mean when we're assigning the term PIO to people and we're not paying them enough, really, to have that level of responsibility?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting younger kids into these positions who have a lot of responsibility, sometimes life or death responsibility, and don't have the experience to back it up. And that's a big worry that I have in terms of not that I think they'll do a bad job. I think they'll do the best job they can. I worry about what they're going to carry with them for the mistakes that they made because they didn't know what to do. Right. There's a big level of guilt for PIOs when you do that mistake and that mistake was wrong.
Yeah. You're right.
I was talking to somebody about it the other day. You know, I have things that I've done throughout my career that I think about at 3 a.m. still. Right? I
have nightmares. Yeah. I still have nightmares to this day about things that I've done. So I'm like, oh my God, you know, you wake up in a sweat because, oh my God, wait, it's over. It's been over with for 10 years, but yet I'm still, it still impacts me. It's still, I remember what happened and where I made my mistake. And yeah.
It's tough. Well, and especially law enforcement, crisis PIOs, you know, you sometimes make decisions that are life or death for people. And if you choose wrong, you did the best you could, but you carry it with you. And you're going to have a lot of very young kids taking in positions with the title PIO who are going to face situations that they're underprepared for, undersupported to make. And they're going to carry those mistakes with them for the rest of their life. And that's something that I want to try to stop from happening, right? And I think getting that toxicity out so that they can ask for help and ask questions and reach out to other PIOs when they don't know what to do, I think is the first step in correcting it.
And that's a tough thing for young people to do, is ask for help. They don't do it very often. They're so reliant on their electronic devices to get them their answers, and you know they're not always people friendly or people outgoing like you are. Me, I could talk to anybody. There's not a person. It doesn't matter where I'm at or what, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm going to talk to you. But there are some that I've met PIOs that really don't ever go out. They don't go into the community.
That's
and that's
it blows my mind.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. My worry for kids is always, and I say kids, but it's just anybody a year younger than me. It doesn't matter. Anybody who's younger than me in the population. I think everybody's always worried about feeling stupid. And again, that's that toxicity. That's a symptom bubbling up, right?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget in one of my first PIO jobs, actually my very first PIO job, now that I think about it, my boss looked at me in front of like 150 people and over microphone asked if I was stupid. And I think about it all the time, right? Because that could have been the moment I quit and never came back.
Oh, absolutely.
I never came back.
Right.
Right? And I think about if I was slightly less spiteful, because I really just survive off of spite. If I was slightly less spiteful and I left the profession, I wouldn't have been able to deploy to help people. I wouldn't have been able to get half of where I am today. And so I just worry. I worry about younger PIOs being made to feel stupid and then leaving who would have potentially been really great PIOs.
Right. All right, let's change this up. Let's go to some rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Books or movies?
Books, 1,000%.
Coffee, tea, or an energy drink?
An energy drink, but side of coffee.
Adult drink of choice?
A bee's knees, which is gin.
Oh, nice. Guilty pleasure food?
Chocolate cake and pizza every day.
If you could become an expert in something, what would it be?
Dinosaurs.
Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
Beg for forgiveness. That was hard. That was a hard one.
That's okay. It's PIO way. What is one thing on your bucket list?
I want to keep traveling. Just keep traveling to different countries.
Awesome. If you could have coffee with any historical figure, living or dead, who would it be?
I would love to have coffee with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and just ask her some questions.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
No matter what happens, we can fix it.
Final thoughts. What key points would you like the listeners to take from today's interview?
Ask questions and don't be worried about feeling stupid. If you find the right people that you feel safe asking questions with, they're not going to think you're stupid. They're going to be happy you asked the question.
Absolutely. As we wrap this up, is there a piece of wisdom or a motto you live by?
So my family used to have a saying that was the only thing worse than getting to the end of your life and burning out your candle is getting to the end of life and having some candle left. And I would say that you should do the opposite of that. I would say that's not a good family motto, right? Get to the end of your life and have some candle left. Take some vacation. Don't be a me and work 60 hours a week. Take some vacation.
Yep.
Do the hard work when you need to, but take care of yourself.
Self-care, so important for PIOs and so overlooked. I just put an article out today, went out on my Substack about self-care. Yeah, really important.
Yeah. I used to tell people all the time that you can self-harm without the traditional, when I say self-harm, you think of some very specific things, but there are other kinds of self-harm too, right?
Yep, absolutely. How can people best reach out to you if they want to connect or follow up?
Please add me on social media. I've got LinkedIn. I've got a professional Facebook page. Just go ahead and add me, but you can also reach out to me anytime you want on Messenger. I'm happy to talk. You can email me as well, sarah.lux@lakecountyfl.gov. Down here in Florida, it's all public record anyway, so you can have it.
And I will put that all in the show notes. Yeah, I'll put it all in the show notes so that they can find it. Sarah,
awesome.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy that I got to talk to you today.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Take care. That's all for this week. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified on the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please give us a review. Any review is appreciated. To support our efforts with the PIO podcast, you can click on the support button in the show notes, and any donation is appreciated. Thank you.